Hello and good evening. This is going to be video 911. This is the second time I've recorded this video because I actually wasn't prepared, but now I am. So, good deal. Hope you're having a wonderful day. This is February 25th, and if you're watching this in the future, at the current moment, there's a lot of anti-transgender laws. Seems like every state. It's almost like there's a fire sale on violating people's rights. And anyway, I've had a lot of problems lately because my IBS, my irritable bowel syndrome, has really been kicking my butt um, because of the stress and everything over it. I'm sure you can identify with it. But what I want to talk about is some terms. Um, Lately, I had the opportunity to try and talk to somebody who, in spite of me introducing myself as a transgender woman and talking about my experiences and particularly sharing my experiences growing up um, as a transgender child and how I felt isolated and alone and misunderstood and confused, but I knew that I was transgender and I didn't have access to the care that I needed, that it was a harmful and terrible experience. And after I shared that, sort of as a way to humanize me, um, they said, well, I just don't think children need to be making those kinds of decisions or something. They were against gender affirming care. And that was after I defined it according to the Department of Health and Human Services, which it includes mental health care. It's not just surgery and operations and drugs and whatnot. So, you know, I've been trying to figure out. Obviously, it's unpleasant. States are passing these laws, but my friends, my contemporaries, I'm 51 years old. Most of the transgender people I know are in their 30s or 40s. You know, we are past a point that there's really not much that I don't want to give them the opportunity, but there's really not much that Kentucky or Indiana can do. They can definitely harass me and make my life, they can make my life difficult. But I've already transitioned. I feel like I'm past the point of, but I'm very concerned about younger, and transgender kids and people that are still figuring out what they want, obviously. And it's wrong to have laws passed against you, period. When you're kind of being oppressed. But much like the guy who kind of stomped all over my plea in the hopes of, he thought he was doing what was right. I tried to think about today as I was driving home. I'm like, you know, these people that are passing these laws, they're overstepping their bounds because it's not their body, it's not their life. And how do I express that? How do I? And I said to myself, well, you know, they're, you know, they're behaving like a tyrant, you know, they're being very tyrannical, a tyrant, kind of you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do, I'm the boss, tyrannical. And I was like, well, is tyrant really the word? So if I look up the definition of a tyrant, it says, among many definitions, let me see if I can move the camera out of the way. There we go. Tyrant meaning: one, A ruler who has complete power over a country and who is cruel and unfair, too. Someone who uses power in a cruel and unfair way. And so, when I thought about it, and I thought about sort of a Republican politician, or maybe a person, a Republican, or anyone really who tries to force their will on someone else. Um, that idea of someone who uses power in a cruel and unfair way. Someone who, like I said, I can only think of a politician, but a politician who does this against transgender people because they don't like them. That's unfair. That's kind of cruel. You know, Forcing children that are currently receiving care, taking that away from them. I see that as being very cruel too, and very unfair. So that kind of applies. But a tyrant, like when you think about it, you're like, well, that's kind of the leader of a country, but it is tyrannical behavior. And what I kind of have found is that people have, you know, they say something like, well, I'm just looking out for your best interests. I know more than you do about your own life. And that's tears at my gut here. But what they've done is they voted for somebody, you know, and again, I have to say Republicans. I don't know any Democrats that have done this, but they probably, I don't know, I can't think of anybody. But, you know, they have a set of beliefs, and the congressperson who's representing them are like, oh, well, okay, my constituents are kind of Christians, and Christians kind of are against gay people in a way, which doesn't really make sense because there's Christian churches that embrace gay people, and Christ didn't say anything about gay people. So, that's all kind of messed up anyway. But, um, the senator who proposes the bill against transgender laws, whatnot, they are using their position of power of being a senator, being a House representative in a cruel and unfair way. So yeah, it's behaving like a tyrant. But you have people who you have the representatives, but then you have the people down here, like the guy or whomever I was speaking with. Um, they sort of distance themselves by it. You know, it'd be very different if this guy started taking transgender people to court, one at a time, and depriving us or trying to take away our rights. So, it's like by proxy, they are giving their vote towards this senator or whatnot that's going to behave like a tyrant. And in their own minds, it's like they're not a tyrant. They voted for Senator Young, Senator Joe Schmo. And so it's like they don't see themselves as being tyrants, as being cruel. You know what I'm saying? Because they're passing a law. So it's like the people down here, the people, like I said, that, when I had my discussion, and, they're very cold and, well, I just don't think it's right. And I support, limiting, blah, 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 blah. You know, I guess my idea here is to shock that system and to make the people realize what they're doing. Well, you did this, and because you did that, this child was taken away from their parents in Texas from the Department of Health and from the Texas, and the parents are being charged with 3 counts of child abuse. You know, to bring the person who votes for it into it rather than by proxy. You know, uh, I guess it's kind of what I want to do. But I thought about tyrant, and I thought of that. I was kind of like in power, like a leader, and that made me think more about a dictator. So when I looked up the definition of a dictator, it says a dictator is someone who has absolute power, or who at least behaves that as if they do by bossing others around. In government, a dictator is a ruler who has total control over a country with no checks and balances to prevent abuse of power. A dictator can also describe someone who acts like one on a smaller scale. Okay, so back to our people here who are, um, you know, basically acting like they have absolute power over other people's lives. I'm going to tell you what you can read. I'm going to tell you what you can think. I'm going to control what you know. I'm going to control your body. I'm going to control what drugs your treatments. I'm going to control what you do. That's a dictator, you know? And for someone, again, who, again, is removed from this, and, I just don't think transgender people are people, or transgender women are women, or whatever. Get them involved. Sit at a table with me and you tell me I'm not a woman. You tell me that I don't have rights. It's a very different experience than what's going on right now, where you have the people down here who are removed somewhat from the law up here from the senators, um, you know, uh, but again, those two terms, a tyrant and a dictator, are sort of governmental terms. A tyrant is a ruler. A dictator is someone who has absolute power or behaves that they do. So I try to think of what is actually going on. Like, if I couldn't say a dictator, if I couldn't say a tyrant. So then I came across this word, manipulate. Okay, let me read this to you. Manipulate. To manage or influence skillfully, especially in an unfair manner. To adapt or change to suit one's purpose or advantage. Well, when I think about that, I think about people who are manipulating the system, proposing these bills to control certain people's behavior. Um, you know, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Thomas Jefferson, you know, wrote about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So here you have this system of government that's being used to control other people and to keep them from doing the things they want to do, specifically in this case, a transgender person transitioning, seeking medical treatment that includes therapy, that includes counseling. Gender affirming care includes counseling. It includes talking to a therapist. Okay. So in my mind, they are manipulating the system of freedom where everyone is created equal. They're manipulating that for their own agenda, which is very cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, if you start to think about these words, um, and then I thought about this more, this idea of free will. Free will. A transgender child wants to be recognized as their authentic self. You and I want to be recognized for our authentic self. So, what do you call it when someone forces you to do something against your will? and I came across this word, coerce, coercion. Okay, if you could look at this definition, coerce, to compel by force, intimidation, or authority, especially without regard for individual desire or volition. Coerce. In my mind, that's what's going on here. You know, a transgender person wants to be their authentic selves. If they had the free will to do that, they could do it. But here you have these other people who are saying, no, you can't do that. I'm going to force you to do what I want you to do against your will. That is coercion. This is manipulation. That person is behaving as a dictator or a tyrant, telling someone else what they're going to do. I mean, can you see the flow of thought here? And so when someone says, well, I'm doing what I think is best for the children, or, God is against transgender people or whatnot, you want to say, well, I just don't understand why you believe in coercion and manipulation to enforce your will on other people. You know, in other words, call it what it is, and you know, don't let them just say, "Well, I'm of the opinion." It's not an opinion. You're manipulating someone else's life. You're taking away their free will. And how in the hell does that jive with the Constitution of the United States of America? You know, group of people, you know, left England to get away from King George, right? They were trying to get away from a king, a tyrant, a dictator. I mean, I just want to scream, ah, you know. So, I guess I'll leave that here. But in the back of my mind, I kind of am thinking about, obviously, I've learned recently I have to be very careful how I phrase things. Um, I'm only allowed to say things that are uplifting in nature, and how do you say that? You could say, isn't it great that this person got to do this without coercion, without manipulation, without someone behaving as a dictator or a tyrant? I could kind of get away with that. I could say that. But like I said, the truth of the matter is these people, that's the Republican senators and Congress folks in Kentucky and Indiana, they're engaging in coercion by definition, this definition. They are manipulating the system for their own means of controlling other people and forcing them to do stuff against their will. Like I said, when you put it in that light, no wonder my IBS kicked in, because that's what's going on. You know, um, especially what you want to say to someone is, do you believe in free will? Or should people get to tell other people what to do and control their lives and force them to do things against their will? Mm, I don't know. I don't know. It just it burns. It gets you angry, um, because we're told that, you know. Mm, mm. Anyway, um, but I don't want to go on too long about it. But it's just something that I realized, and we'll see. But anyway, food for thought. Food for thought. Maybe something to use next time if you're trying to kind of make a point. You know, well, I don't understand why you're behaving like a dictator. expecting other people to do what you want them to do. Kind of goes against the idea of free will, doesn't it? Sounds like slavery to me. Anyway, till next time, good luck. Bye bye.